Looking at another disappointing performance from the Las Vegas Raiders falling to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we're witnessing what could be described as one of the franchise's most challenging seasons in the past 15 years. With a 2-11 record, the situation appears particularly grim, especially at the quarterback position. There was a glimmer of hope with Aidan O'Connell after his impressive showing against the Kansas City Chiefs. However, against the Buccaneers, that spark simply wasn't there. The contrast between these two games really tells the story. Against Kansas City, O'Connell thrived by exploiting their aggressive pass rush strategy. However, Tampa Bay, typically known for their pressure-heavy defense, shifted tactics and dialed back their rush, which threw O'Connell's rhythm off entirely. What we're seeing suggests that O'Connell, despite showing flashes of potential last week, likely isn't the long-term answer at quarterback for this franchise. The Raiders are clearly at a crossroads where they need to seriously evaluate their quarterback situation moving forward. Before diving deeper into individual performances, I have to address the concerning injury O'Connell sustained during the game. It was an unnecessary hit that led to this injury, and for that, Kalijah Kancey should absolutely face suspension for that hit. O'Connell had taken about 3 steps after releasing the ball, yet Kalijah still delivered a forceful blow to his back. As O'Connell tried to brace himself, you could clearly see his knee buckle underneath him. The severity became immediately apparent when they brought out the air cast and carted him off the field. Based on the mechanism of injury, it looks like potential ACL damage. Regardless of his future role with the Raiders, whether as a starter or backup, the primary concern right now is O'Connell's health and recovery. These kinds of injuries can be career-altering, and proper rehabilitation will be crucial. Now, let's dive deeper into O'Connell's performance before the injury. What really stands out is how differently Tampa Bay defended him compared to Kansas City. The Buccaneers took a more calculated approach. Instead of heavy blitzing, they forced O'Connell to go through his progressions and make multiple reads. This exposed a critical aspect of his development as a quarterback. When the defense takes away the primary read and forces him to scan the field, O'Connell's limitations became apparent. We saw him taking sacks and making hurried throws out of bounds when plays broke down. That ability to create something when the original play isn't there, that's what separates good quarterbacks from great ones. The downfield passing game that looked so promising against Kansas City just wasn't there. This performance really highlights why the Raiders need to seriously consider their quarterback options in the upcoming draft. There's been a lot of buzz around prospects like Shedeur Sanders, though some analysts question if he's worth a first-round pick. Similar debates are happening around Bo Nix and Drew Aller, with Aller's stock rising after that impressive showing against Oregon. What makes this even more apparent was watching Baker Mayfield's performance for the Buccaneers in this game. He demonstrated exactly what the Raiders are missing: a quarterback who can consistently execute the fundamentals and make the necessary plays. The contrast was striking. The Raiders desperately need someone who can provide that level of quarterback play, because right now we're seeing these critical limitations in the quarterback room. Jimmy Garoppolo was probably the closest to providing that kind of play, but even he struggled to operate within structure. That's really what it comes down to in the NFL. You need a quarterback who can do both: execute the designed plays and create when things break down. When the offensive coordinator calls for a dagger concept, that dig route needs to be hit in stride, exactly as designed. But then you also need that improvisational ability when the play breaks down. Right now, the Raiders have a mix of incomplete skill sets: one quarterback who can scramble but struggles with structured plays, another who can execute the basics but can't create when the initial reads aren't there. Watching Baker Mayfield execute both aspects efficiently really highlights what's missing in Las Vegas. Now, shifting focus to other players, Sincere McCormick really stood out in this game. He answered a lot of questions about his potential, and I'm confident he can be part of the long-term solution at running back. That said, the Raiders shouldn't stop there. They should still look to add another running back through the draft, and a perfect example of why multiple backs are crucial in today's NFL was on display in this game. Look at what the Buccaneers did. Even with their top back Rachaad White getting 90 yards, and Sean Tucker, their third-string back, adding another 47 yards. And remember, they did this without their dynamic runner Chase Edmonds, who was sidelined with a hip injury. That's the model the Raiders should be following. While McCormick has shown promise, having multiple backs is the way to go in today's NFL. Looking at the upcoming draft, the second round could be the sweet spot to add another impact runner. This running back class is incredibly deep. To put it in perspective, highly rated prospects from last year like Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson would probably be 5th or 6th on the board in this upcoming class. That's how loaded this group is. You have to wonder if Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco were thinking about this depth when making their recent decisions. Looking at today's performance, Tom Telesco really showed what he's capable of, putting up 78 yards on 15 carries. The offensive line deserves credit too. They actually outperformed Tampa Bay's unit in pass protection, which is saying something given the Bucs' reputation for solid line play. What's really impressive is how the Raiders' defense continues to perform, particularly that secondary. Now, they're not perfect. We've seen Jack Jones get caught out of position at times, but the scheme is elite. They're creating confusion for quarterbacks and making them work for every completion. Yes, Baker Mayfield put up 295 yards, but a huge chunk of that came on just 4 explosive plays, often when the Raiders were being aggressive trying to get off the field on 3rd down. Reflecting on how this season has unfolded for the Raiders, we're seeing some real bright spots. K'Lavon Chaisson came up big with that interception, and while Max Crosby might not be at his absolute peak right now, he's still making his presence felt. What's particularly encouraging is the commitment level we see from this defensive unit, even with a 2-11 record. Take Adam Butler, for example. He's out there giving maximum effort on every snap, dominating in the trenches despite the team's record. Jack Jones, despite giving up that touchdown, showed his resilience by making 2 huge plays. That interception and what should have been a clean pass breakup before the PI call. He came right back and got that pick anyway, showing the kind of mentality this defense has developed. The contrast between the defense and offense is stark right now. The defense has a clear identity, the players are bought in, and they're executed at a high level. Fix the quarterback situation, and this team could really turn things around. Now, another player I was watching closely in this game was Michael Mayer, and he really delivered with 7 catches for 68 yards. That's impressive production for a second tight end in his 3rd game back. What's encouraging is that he's not just getting targets, he's looking comfortable out there in the offense. When you look at the pieces the Raiders have, Mayer, Jacoby Myers, and Zamir White, there's actually some solid talent there. But to truly transform this offense, they need 2 more key pieces: a true number 1 receiver and another dynamic running back. The good news is both are achievable this offseason. The receiver situation is particularly interesting because the Raiders could be players in free agency. They have the cap flexibility to spend anywhere from $15 to $30 million on a top-tier receiver. You're looking at guys like T. Higgins, or even a potential reunion with Amari Cooper. The blueprint for a quick turnaround is actually pretty clear. Sign a top receiver in free agency, then use those first 3 draft picks strategically, quarterback in round 1, running back in round 2, and maybe a physical tone-setting guard in round 3. What makes this particularly frustrating is seeing how close these games are, even with their current limitations. They were within 1 touchdown of Tampa Bay late in the 4th quarter, with their 3rd-string quarterback. Just imagine what this team could do with a legitimate NFL starter under center. We're talking about a team that's struggling to put up 13 points right now. A solid quarterback could potentially triple that output. Now, speaking of the upcoming draft, this loss actually puts the Raiders in a fascinating position. They're currently holding the number 1 overall pick, especially after that wild finish in the Giants-Saints game where New Orleans missed what should have been a routine 30-yard field goal. However, even if both the Raiders and Giants lose out, that top pick isn't guaranteed. The strength of schedule tiebreaker fluctuates weekly as the season wraps up. There's still football to be played, 4 games left in what's admittedly been one of the most challenging seasons in recent memory. But these final games will be crucial in evaluating talent and determining the path forward. So, what do you think, guys? Should the Raiders stick with Aidan O'Connell or use their top draft pick on a new quarterback? And who would you select with the 1st overall pick? Caleb Williams, Shedeur Sanders, or another top prospect? Let me know in the comment section below.